micro, vraiment pensez à bien mettre la bouche. Sinon, là, ça marche plus. Donc, voilà.
Ok, ben on nous dit qu'on peut y aller, donc on va commencer. Alors je vais commencer en français et après.
Well, let's start. I would invite those who need translation to just take headsets at the entrance. So welcome all to this panel. Well, let's call it just a panel, not a conference, on the issue of European cooperation as a driver for creativity. So, or creativity as a driver for cooperation, or the reverse, so whatever. Now, so all of that, includes a lot of challenges, stakes, which we need to take on collectively. So I'm going to switch to English, says the speakers.
We are all engaged as a cultural and creative professionals, as citizens, in huge transformation. It's not just a kind of adaptation of the way we are working, on the way we are organizing ourselves. It's really, in a very, we can say that in a simple way, complex and ambivalent environment and changing environment. A lot of questions about how can we imagine today a cultural and creative space in Europe? What is to sustain diversity, to sustain social change? How can we face the new social demand and the social also way to think about culture and citizenship? And how it's possible to organize ourselves collectively when you have a lot of concentration, we saw this morning, a lot of technological innovation, a lot of gatekeepers also we saw these mornings. And really to think we are doing this in a moment where at the end nobody knows exactly what is at stake. It's very difficult to know. And for instance, this morning one of the panelists was saying that it's difficult for me to say what I need in terms of legislation and regulation because I don't understand myself what is at stake at that moment and what I need. And maybe that's what we are going to see during this panel, not trying to cover a lot, but trying to have an insight of these challenges and an insight of maybe we have a lot of uncertainty, but maybe one thing that we know it's that facing such transition, it's impossible or not easy to do it alone. And it's really something that we need to deal collectively, and collectively inside our sector, audiovisual, inside the music, etc. But maybe also in a more transversal way, how can we engage in a diversity to understand and to experiment in between people that normally were not working together, but maybe that are in their complementarity can really do something. So we have 5 people with us. So we have 1 hour and 15 minutes. So as I was saying, it's not possible to cover a lot. I'm going to ask each one of you maybe a first question. And we will save at the end 15 minutes or 20 minutes also to maybe engage the conversation with you. So I'm going to start directly. So I'm going to start with you, Frédéric and Cécile. I'm going just to introduce you, so you will start directly in your answer. Frédéric, you are a co-director of Artifarty, and Cécile, you are working for a project, coopération project inside Artifarty. Artifarty is a European, it's defining itself as a European and independent association, working in the music field, but maybe more larger, in cultural innovation, in public debate. So enlarging maybe the way you were doing at the beginning. You built your action recently on cooperation and collective action. And my first question will be for you. So regarding your experience, regarding what you are seeing in your field, what type of challenges do you see that need to be tackled collectively?
Okay, thank you. I will try to answer in English, and maybe I will switch to French.
You can switch if you want, there is no problem.
Too difficult for me, okay. Yeah, so we are actually working in different fields, and among them we are running a festival called Nuit Sonore, which is based in Lyon, and which is part of this cooperation project called We Are Europe. And what I have to say first is that this music festival sector is a very competitive sector. So one of the big challenge first is that in this specific moment of concentration phenomena you have in the music industry, it becomes harder and harder, you know, to deal with all these issues we already have to face before, such as artist exclusivity, for instance, or the increasing of the artist fees, but also the production costs that are increasing all the time. And I think that the cooperation allows you to face that kind of issues, because instead of trying to do as these big capitalistic groups are doing, you try to do something else. You ask yourself your own responsibility of being a cultural stakeholder, meaning that, for instance, you can try to change your relationship with the artist and the audience, trying not to be so dependent to the headliners, for instance, trying to for a festival which is by nature very short, a festival it's 3 days or 6 days, you know. One of the challenges was maybe to integrate some long process in it, and saying, okay, maybe now we can change our producing, the way we produce things, maybe invite artists to do some residencies and support them during some creation sequences, for instance. It's not very innovative in some ways, because creation is something that you always find in other fields, you know, but for electronic music it's not so, you know, it's not so obvious to propose some kind of residency and creation things. So introducing some long process into a short-term project, it's very interesting. And you can do it because you do it collectively, because you can co-produce things, because you can try, and you said it can be an experimental framework. It's a laboratory. And yeah, so it's about facing concentration by doing things differently, and asking ourselves what kind of responsibility we have in what we want to present to the audience, maybe having the same level of ticketing, because we need the ticket sellings, you know, but trying not to be so dependent to headliners, as I was saying, but trying to, by supporting this process, make the artists meet the local communities also of audiences and artists, and make them, for instance, participate to a panel, to a podcast, to a footage, to something else, not having them just for 15 minutes of a concert, but, you know, having this whole process engaged. Yeah. Cécile, maybe you want to.
Cécile, you want to also?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So, yeah, another thing which is interesting is that because I coordinate a cooperation, which is 8 festivals in 8 different European countries, and also with 8 different realities in terms of size and territories. So another thing which is interesting is that we are at a moment where we have to face a lot of challenges and we have to change our habits like quickly. And the interesting thing, and I think like why it's a very, very useful tool, the cooperation, is because it's a way to share what we are learning, and especially when it comes to the way we are going to produce and to reduce our environmental impact, because produce an event has an environmental impact. Sorry. So it's a good way to not start from crash every time for each organization, because you can rely on your partners. And also because you have different realities. For example, you can be kind of a big festival, so sometimes it's more difficult to be agile and to try new things. And so you have your partners who are maybe more small and have more opportunities also to try and test small changes, so to be creative somehow. And so you can share this. And also another thing is that often cooperation are really connected to each other. Like, for example, the partnership or the networks or the cooperation into the music field, we kind of know each other. And it's something that happening is to try to not like all doing our own stuff in our own corner, but to share and to mutualize. And this is efficient. I mean, we don't have so much time to change the way we are doing our activities. So I think it's a good accelerator, and it's also a space for solidarity. And yeah, somehow I think it's easier to change habits and to be more creative thanks to this kind of partnership.
Thank you. We will go back on this. Maybe on another perspective, Jeff, you have founded in 2011 World Crunch, which is an independent online media, if I can say like this, gathering, translating, adapted stories from 40 countries in 15 languages, and maybe also with an idea of that if we want to see more open citizenship, we need also to connect with the diversity of stories and realities. And same question for you, from your perspective, huge perspective on media, democracy, etc. What type of issue do you see, and why do you think collectively it's important?
Well, yeah, the very idea of World Crunch, our media, relies on cooperation, on sharing. Where the original idea, in fact, is an idea that was born here in France with Courrier International. So the first part of cooperating is, if I can say it diplomatically, stealing good ideas, but understanding what's working out there and where the opportunities are, but then to actually execute it, you need to work with other people, find the best work that they're doing, and integrate it into whatever you're producing, marketing, selling, informing, whatever it might be. So it's at the very heart of the company that I co-founded with a French businesswoman, to bring this European idea of sharing perspectives and covering the world from a multiplicity of viewpoints and different voices and different perspectives, and bringing that to English language readers in my native country, in the US and elsewhere. And so I mean, the context for me as an American who's now been in Europe for more than 20 years is that, that Europe itself is a model of cooperation, and you see the opportunities that it presents, also the challenges that it presents, but it's in some way the very model of how things work in Europe, and so it's natural for my particular activity, which is about bringing together these different points of view. But the, and of course the context for us in the face of these technological challenges, we're online only, founded in 2011. I don't think there was any other choice but that. And so, you know, we're in touch with different newspapers and colleagues in different countries, not only in Europe, and readers from around the world. And so you do hear the challenges inside the individual news organizations, both in terms of the production of the news and in making the business work. And so all of that input is helpful for us. And I think, you know, the very nature of the internet opens up all kinds of possibilities to connect with people who may be far away and may be in different sectors. In our case, also different languages, and so, you know, it's you can see all the different sort of ways to cooperate across geography and across competences, across businesses, from businesses to nonprofits, from the state to the free market, and so it's essential. I don't really see any other way, or any other virtuous way. There are other ways, but I'm convinced that for things to work out well in the future, where we're all connected, it should be integrated into what we all do. And then, you know, there are much more specific things. In our case, we've then branched off, and probably the way I ended up here is actually a side project from World Crunch, which is a partner on a technology and photography project that has support from Europe, from Creative Europe. We're in the first round of the news category for Creative Europe projects. And there we're bringing together 4 photo agencies from around Europe and technology providers. And it's the heart of the project is to understand the challenges that the internet essentially has posed for the photography industry. And you know, as you were saying before, I think it was you, Laurence, in the introduction, you know, you get together, you're not in each place to try to understand. Sometimes we don't even understand what it exactly is we're doing. And even where we're going, we just know that we need to go and we need to get there. And so the cooperation is the active part of getting there, of understanding what the current challenges are and getting people's input for how to find the solutions.
Thank you. Alan, from another perspective, not so different at the end, you are coming from the audiovisual industry. At the beginning you were a producer, now you are more working on the delivering content from directly maybe from a producer to audiences. And really the question of how can we organize ourselves at European level regarding this, and what is missing maybe in that link to connect diversity and diversity of what people are searching. If I'm doing it very simply, but from your perspective, cooperation, when we were preparing, you were saying that maybe in the audiovisual industry, we are at the first part of co-producing is okay, but maybe it's missing something. Can we have your insight?
Yeah, in the film industry, we've been fortunate to have a very solid 30 years of cooperation in financing and producing films. The problem that we have always had, and that we particularly have now, is that distribution of film is, you mentioned a lot of gatekeepers. I'd have to say there are way too few gatekeepers, because 80% of the distribution in Europe is dominated by 3 of the top media tech companies from Silicon Valley. This is a huge problem for diversity. There are very few people who are deciding what 80% of this market is going to have. The response so far on the European level has been way too subjugated. The French film ministry negotiated a deal with the streaming platforms that 30% of the films on the platforms should be local content, and the production of a handful of art house films, I think it was 3 a year, and a few bigger budget films, of which Netflix is now withdrawing because they don't have the money, because their business model is not very good. That's another story, but the point here being that if you have 80% of the market dominating distribution, and they're also supposed to have 30% of the content being local, that in fact means that all of the, or a very few limited producers are going to have direct production deals with the platforms, and what happens to everyone else? What happens to the 70% of productions in France that don't get a deal with Netflix or with Disney? They have to then scramble to reach 20% of the audience through, I think you have about 100 streaming platforms in France. None of them have a profitable business model. At the same time, our film catalogs, our history of film, are not easily available. At any given time, I'm sure all of you can recognize this. You think of a film, you go to your platform, it's not there. You go to your second platform, it's not there. You go to your third platform, and it's still not there. And this is a very frustrating experience for people who enjoy watching films that are older than 2 years. These films need to be available to a huge audience. What the audience has responded by doing, and I would say deservedly so, is to pirate films in huge numbers. And the only response we have is, we failed to deliver films to you, but if you try to watch them somewhere else, we're going to go after you and fine you, which is a crazy way to operate with your fans. So what we need to do is to talk about how we will make our films not locked up on platforms. We have to talk about how certain middlemen in the film industry shouldn't be able to retain an exclusive sales right to films. But after a certain given period of time, these films need to be able to be distributed by anyone who can distribute them. And today, and what we are working on, is not platform distribution. I don't believe in platform distribution as a business model for artists. Look at Spotify as a perfect example of that. I don't believe that platforms help diversity, because there are way too few gatekeepers. And so what we are working on is making films available through spreading virally. And that means you should be able to spread films from your social media platforms. You should be able to watch films on pirate sites as long as you pay. And we have the technology today to automatically detect any film being streamed anywhere and ensure that the person who created it is paid directly. And this is what we're working on, but we need the European Union to enact laws that say that the copyright directive allows for the exploitation of film if the rights holder is not able to distribute that film in a given time in a certain territory. And this way, we can allow our films to be made available in territories like Vietnam and India, or even in Europe, where the average European film is only distributed to 3 countries. And if you imagine all that money that we put in these films together, production-wise and financing, being on the shelves, gathering dust, while people are forced to pirate them in order just to watch them, that's an absurd system. So yeah, that's my conclusion.
So we see that it's question of sustainability, of a different, completely reorganization of the value chain and organization in between the actor, also organization of work, depending also on if we want to engage in such diversity, social change, and really maybe think about differently the way we are looking even audience also, and maybe it's not exactly audience, it's citizen, it's someone with who you can engage, etc. This morning it was also more on about regulation and public policy, and we see also that we had this double challenge, we can say, that to adapt public policies and also for professionals to engage in their own transformation. We have Corinne from the CNM. Today you are more on the public policy side, we can say that. And even there, you have experiment with your European colleague, cooperation, about also on how it's possible to imagine taking into account also the needs. How can we define maybe differently European public policies? This morning, one of the panelists was talking about how it's possible to be visible outside Europe. She was saying that for this we don't have any regulation, but maybe we can have public policy, so maybe you can, if you want.
Okay, I'll try. I'm not sure I'm going to answer this question as a whole, but so CNM is Centre National de la Musique, so yes, we are a public body, so we are doing the sort of public policy for the French music sector. And in this way, we are working with the professionals in funding their production, creation, distribution. We're also making some capacity building programs, advisors, and all the needs you will have as a music professionals or artists in France. You may have an answer at le Centre National de la Musique. And we are engaged on a European level. We are part of a network which is called European Music Exporters Exchange, because CNM is also involved in export of music, so we are working with professionals willing to develop their artists abroad. And in this specific mission, we are part of this network, which is really where cooperation really takes its value, I would say, because some would think as European, we are competitors. But actually with EMI, which is the European Music Exporters Exchange, we are really sharing our knowledge. We talked about solidarity, and this is exactly what this morning was called as the EU added value, I would say, because this is exactly where we are waiting for Europe and the European institution to help us in facing two different things, which is to be Europe as a bloc in exporting outside of Europe. So it means that we really believe that for an artist or a professional, Europe should be one market, a unique market, which is not the case for the moment. And this is the problem of sometimes legislation and barriers like VAT or things like that, which are very complex and different from one country to another one in Europe. And if Europe would be really our, I would say, field for development for any EU artist, we will be stronger to get outside of Europe. And this is Europe as a bloc. And in this, cooperation is key, because together we can go in another country with EU delegations of professional artists, and this is exactly where the Commission is helping us in testing this sort of program, for example, in cooperation. But we can also, for example, support some co-creation, because sometimes it's very valuable to have artists from different countries working together in writing camps and in playing together, touring together. So this is exactly where cooperation in exporting is really key. But there is something that we wanted to say during the French presidency of the European Council. We wanted to make the voice of music heard, to face, and this is also, I mean, to defend the creativity of the sector. We have to really cooperate to face all the challenges we have to face. And we talked about, of course, diversity. discoverability of the work of arts of the artists in the platforms, for example, because we have 100% of the catalogs which are available, but can you really see them? Do you really hear them on your streaming platforms? This is not for sure. But we also have great challenges in terms of carbon footprint. I think this was mentioned this morning too. And we believe that cooperatively we can find solutions that we can share in order to get ready to face this, because there is an association called Music Declares Emergency, and they say no music on a dead planet. So this is exactly what we have to face now, and this is where I think there is a European added value in finding solutions that we would share all together to face these challenges. There is also the challenges of diversity of the people working in the music industry, for example. There is no real gender equality, and there is no real inclusion of all the diversity of the population in terms of artists, but in terms of people working too. So this also, we have solutions for that. There are, I don't know, mentoring programs, there are ways of doing things, and I think that the solidarity and the working together on a European point of view is very valuable, this, and will really help creativity as a whole for music in my concern, but for the whole creativity, I would say, on a cultural sector.
Thank you. We are seeing that really behind this question of cooperation, there is really a question of choice about what type of society, regarding what you were saying also about diversity, representativeness, diversity of the content, linked with the territory, access to a diversity of point of view, and really maybe it's also the point behind this. It's not only to cooperate and adapt, or more than adapt, change, but really having a collective choice today on what type of culture, what type of artistic or different kind of media content, etc. we want, but also regarding what kind of society and what kind of organization collectively to do this. So I would like to ask you again, maybe to push maybe around this question, and maybe to come back to Frédéric and Cécile, because you are asking also this question yourself, cooperation, but even when we are seeing Artifarty, you are not only a music player, you are working on cultural innovation, engage yourself in public debate, engage in audiovisual policy in a way. So collectively with your partner, what kind of issue you see and on what you want to engage regarding this question of European space?
Well, yeah. Again, I think we have this position of being independent, which is very important in what we are saying, because it makes you work differently, because you have to find your own incomes. We have, for instance, we are self-income by 80% for Artifarty, but you know, sometimes independency is different in between the countries. You can be independent also because you are independent from the government also, for instance, in Hungary, you know. So the independency is something very different from a country to another. But this question is very in the center of what we do, and the idea is to find what we can share and what is the common ground of all of us. And you were saying about visibility, and one thing about independent people is that they need to get more visibility in what they do, even if they are, I think, and this is what we feel, always driven by general interest in some ways. You know, it's about supporting artists, it's about inclusion, it's about diversity, it's about how you can maybe propose to the audience some different kind of cultural events that are not, you know, le mot en français c'est formaté, not into this, you know, entertainment way of doing things, you know, and this is the kind of thing that I think we share with our partners, how we can work all together sharing these general interest values with this priority of having our economical balance with this, you know, this ticketing pressure. So you have to find another way, to find alternatives, to present some cultural events in a context where you don't want to be driven by the profit. You have to work for, fighting for your own vision, you know. What can I say? Yeah, and it's this is also why we want not to be only at the musical level, but we also have many speakers involved, and it's about, you know, the circulation of ideas, the circulation of artists. It's about, you know, how we can all together share common values and maybe make the difference at the end, you know, because collectively we can be stronger. And obviously, when you work lonely, you can scream all you can, but you don't go very far, you know. So the idea of also trying to make this network, we have this network Reset, which is a network for independent actors, both in the media field and in the cultural field. The idea is really to give to these stakeholders the capacity to share common issues and to get stronger together. So it's a different way of cooperating, but it's very important also.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that 2020 was really frightening for that, because we were forced to close everything and to stop a lot of activities, especially when it was live music or theater or this kind of activities. And so you can make this conclusion that in one side you have big players. It's not a big deal for them because they have plenty of activities and not only the cultural ones. And from the other side, you have the institutions, public institutions. So you can imagine that they will survive even after. And then in between there is you, and it's a mess. And you are not organized to, you know, to have a voice and to be heard by the public institutions or the regulator. So it was a fight somehow when it was 2020, and then it was really important to cooperate at this moment to have some help and to be recognized as important players in the social collective democracy.
Thank you. Alan, this morning, one lady working in the audiovisual industry was saying that at the end, we need maybe also to think about audiovisual in this new area with a different way to imagine how do you see movie, and maybe to imagine differently online. When we were preparing, you were talking also the game industry. Maybe one question, and it is linked, it's how do you see also this European reorganization including in this moment where cultural habits are, je veux dire, par-dessus tête. We don't know exactly where we are in this, and how do you see that?
Well, I think it's very important that we become technologically independent first and foremost, because right now there are technological giants that can finance, produce, and distribute content, and that is a very dangerous proposition, especially when they're beholden to shareholders. And the truth is that technology and that idea of platforms is quite old, quite lacking of innovation. While on the other side you see things such as the peer-to-peer and the piracy distribution being extremely creative, being community-driven. They created this thing called Popcorn Time in 2015, which became more popular than Netflix overnight. And was because it made every film available. Not only every film available, but they had fan posters. They had subtitles created by fans. And this is still the fact around the world, where you get, and I have to say, I've seen subtitles that are better than the professional subtitles. Because the fans have a dedication to the films that they love. And I'm not talking about Marvel films, I'm talking art house films from Europe. They have a dedication where they want to get engaged and be a participant in this industry, in this economy. And to facilitate the creation of a community aspect between the filmmaker and the fan, to allow them to create posters and subtitles, to reward them for something like that, allow them to ask a question on a virtual reality Q&A session with the director, for example, if they create a poster or a subtitle that is used. This kind of engagement is what the gaming industry has been so clever at in ensuring that its audience doesn't have a huge barrier to entry. That's the first thing. First, your content has to be easily available. They have succeeded in doing so as independent production and distribution houses on a common platform of rights and transactions. Very, very important. And then secondly, they said, hey, our game isn't going to cost so much. Our films should not cost so much. We'll give you easy access to it, but if you enjoyed it, what more can you offer that audience? What IP can the artist partake in and offer to its audience? Which is similar to your workshops also, I think, in that you say, hey, the IP doesn't begin and end at the 1.5 hour of a film. What happened behind the scenes? What are the interactions you can have with the director after the film is released? Can I buy that shirt that this actor was wearing somewhere? I mean, here is huge potentials of revenue models. And the important thing here is that the rights holders are given technology that allow this distribution to happen, that allow them to reach their audience direct and to engage directly with their audiences. And in the way of that are platforms. And these platforms can be challenged, and that technology is here today. So I think a technology enlightenment is required, and embracing is required by the film industry, because if we don't own distribution, you own nothing. Then your industry is gone. And that's my worry about the film industry, that we will no longer be in charge of our own filmmaking.
Jeff, regarding your the sector of independent media with important content and diverse content, how do you see that at the European level at the moment?
Well, I think Alan's bringing up some big topics that obviously apply to different sectors, different industries, and not only in the creative cultural sector, about the power of the big tech platforms. I think, you know, the question in the media, you know, when I started out in my career as a reporter at a print newspaper, it was understood that the content creators, the reporters, we were expressly told not to think about the business or the technology. We were just, you go and get the story so that you're not influenced by anything related to the business side of the operations. You talk about the wall between the editorial side and the business side. The explosion of the dynamiting of the business model that the internet has brought has sort of now made it an understood, received wisdom that journalists need to be thinking about the business and the technology to be actors in this transformation, and that goes, I would assume, across all creative sectors. But I'll just recount a piece from this other project, which is called Pixty, this platform for distributing photographs on the internet with blockchain technology and all of these questions about ownership and control. And talking to a photographer who's a partner in the project, who's older than me, and comes, from the old world, but is is someone who has always been aware of the industry. He's been an independent photographer and of the technology. And he wants to be a part of this transformation. But the way that a lot of this is articulated to the creators is that you need to market yourself. You know, you need to be a brand, right? And that misses it. It's close to what it is, but it's not the thing. And the thing, and so, you know, he was talking about Instagram. I'll name one of the platforms by name. That photographers are basically obliged to give all of their content, and not little snippets of it. You know, we in the press on the text side, we complain and we want, you know, the neighboring rights deals for the snippets of the articles and the headlines. Photographers are giving the whole of their photographs away all the time. You don't get a snippet of the photo; you get the whole photo. Maybe it's not in high definition, but on the internet you don't need it to be in high definition. So the photographers are giving it all away, and they're obliged to because they're working on their personal brand, and Instagram helps them get other work, and Instagram helps them sell T-shirts or who knows what. And this photographer said, you know, okay, that's fine, but I don't want to be an influencer. I'm a photographer, right? And so I think the trick here is to get as many of the creators to engage in the debate and to be thinking about the issues, but then it requires, and for us to talk with them, because, you know, we all have ideas and we're gatekeepers, right? And we're the ones who, you know, we like to think we're working in their interests, and so we've got the solution, but we need to, I think the solutions come in the interaction between those who entreprend and those who are creating directly. And, you know, but I would imagine for our lifetimes, there's going to be a certain requirement that the creators get educated, get engaged, and that we all get engaged with them. And that's, I think, the space where you come up with solutions that are ultimately in their interest and then in the public interest.
Corinne, do you want to react, maybe?
I don't know if it's a reaction, but I'm thinking, you know, I was there because I'm old when I was working in the music industry at the beginning of internet, and we were there, and at the beginning we didn't know how to keep on, you know, creators, right holders. They were just, I mean, the music was just free for everyone, and the internet was just advertising. If you want all your content for free, you know, go to the download solution. So, and we were like investing in creation, in artists, in production, and there was this new economic model that came, that it's the platform, is Spotify and Deezer, and that's the way the development of the economy of music just grow, and it's been now more than 20 years. And now the music, well, actually the recording music and the system is now getting back to a sort of revenue which is better than it used to be in the 20s, you know, at the beginning of internet. And the production and the artists, they were not distributors. So the way that the economy just settled down its own way of the business, how it works, the regulation, everything has been settled down in a way, and it's been a long time ago. And now this digitalization and the consumers, I think, it's a sort of stable thing that has happened. So it's quite okay, even if the remuneration, the fair remuneration of the artist is still an issue. And that, I think it's on a European level with the Digital Services Act or the regulation that things are trying to get for a better life for the artists and owners of the rights of the creators. But I want to say there are new challenges now, because there are new, I mean, the audience is always changing its way of going to the music, listening to the music, watching to the music. So now there is a live stream, and it's still not really clear where the rights are going, who is the owner, is it a video, is it music, can we make a ticketing on it, and all that kind of stuff. And this is where I think, again, working on a cooperative level and on the EU level, because we are European, that we can find solutions and reflect all together in the best way of having a fair remuneration for the artists and the owners. So this is what I was thinking of when I was, especially when you are talking about this maybe new way of distribution of the creation, but it's still new. And is it? I mean, and my question would be, what about the rights owners, and what about the rights of everybody who is really involving in the creation and the production? How does it work?
If I may. So what we did first is that we built a platform of rights, where the rights holder signs up, verifies their identity, gives in the film ministry a chain of title to prove their ownership, and then they have the opportunity to make that film available to any application connected to this database, which can distribute the film. So they set the price, they set the territories that are available, and they then have the entire waterfall of the investors. So you get your producer share, you get the artist share, you get the investor share. So that's like the basis of it. And that's built on blockchain, as you said. And what we can now do is that, or what we have now done, I should say, is that we have built an influencer dashboard, as we call it. But really, we're all influencers. Everyone's got a social media account, everyone has friends. And so you can go in and you can watch a film, and you can say, hey, you know, that film really spoke to me, and I want to share that with my friends or with my followers. And you just generate a link from where you watch the film, and you can post that on a post. Say, hey everyone, check out this film. I watched it. It's really great. You click the link, because we always discover here. We always pay here. You discover it through your social media accounts, Instagram or Twitter, and you buy the film, and then it's automatically available on your smart TV to stream, or you can stream it from your mobile or however. And that transaction that happens, that payment that is done from the discovery of someone recommending you something, so word of mouth, that is immediately sent to the accounts of the rights owners within 1 minute from anywhere in the world. And that is a big revolution. And I think you're right in that we can't expect artists, and we can't even expect producers to be able to market their films, but they can certainly find out who's interested in their films because of the theme of the film, or the people who are in the film, or the director, and they can then begin to talk and post about that film, and they can join in that incentive of distributing that film. So it's a continuous word of mouth, where everyone has a stake and everyone can get paid a fraction for talking about that film and making it available.
I think this does not apply to music, because everything is available on every platform. This is very specific for cinema, I would say. Because you can share as an audience, as a fan. I mean, if you want to share the link to an artist you like, you know that it's going to end up somewhere where the rights will go to the artist anyway. Maybe less if it's on one of the platforms, I won't say. Maybe there's a value gap between the audience that is listening to music on YouTube and the revenue which is going to the creators, of course. And even if it's reducing, it's still there. But I think this is not, I mean, I think this is not, and we had this discussion with the stakeholder of music, with the One Voice for European Music initiative. We wanted to really see on how all the voices of the stakeholders of the music would find, with the general interest view, what would be their main challenges. And I mean, of course, the fair remuneration of the creators is one of them. But I think what really get out of it was really the changes of the ecology and these kind of things, that they really need to cooperate together to tackle these problems.
We have 5 minutes left before to give the floor for the question. Just a very quick things to each one of you. We see that in that moment it's a lot of experimentation, and we don't know exactly what will be the end, but as Jeff was saying, maybe it's a way to have something that we know what we are searching, a kind of equilibrium in between diversity, fair remuneration, access, European space, European cultural space, open space, social innovation, and we need to bargain in a sense, and also not to be closed in our own sector, not to say, but really to imagine, to look at what is experiment in a different territory, to imagine how can we find such equilibrium in between very diverse players. And just because a very concrete question, because each one of you say we, so we are working on, we are. And I just would like to ask to each one of you, who is we? Because can you just tell us, in the last project you made in cooperation, the type of structure you were, and same question and same question. Cécile, you want to go?
Yeah, when we say we, but because RC has different projects, but there is one, we are in this cooperation since 2015, so it's the oldest cooperation we have, and it's called We Are Europe, which is a cooperation gathering 8 festivals of music, but also forums. Yeah.
8 festivals of very different sizes. That means that we have very different realities, and I think it's one thing interesting in the way of cooperation, of cooperating, is that you have to struggle with these different realities, and then you have to learn with each other. It's strengthen all the organization involved. So it's also very tangible, the cooperation. It's not only about experimenting things, it's also about strengthening, learning from each other. And yeah, when we say we are talking about We Are Europe, so the 8 of us at the moment.
And it's specialized into more electronic and experimental music, so it's also sometimes easier to find partners that share exactly the same kind of aesthetics, or let's say vision of music event outside also of your own national space. Sometimes you can really find people think like you. And it's really interesting to try the European cooperation for this kind of projects.
Jeff, some question?
Sure. The Pixty project that I mentioned before consists of 5 partners. There's World Crunch as a news media and a project manager, together with 4 photo agencies around Europe. There's the Noor Images, which is based in Amsterdam, which is a documentary photo collective, and Contrasto in Italy, the top documentary photo agency in Italy. And then we have the National News Agency in Poland, PAP, and the same in the Czech Republic, Chetika. And so it's two author agencies and 2 news agency to sort of, to build this new platform for photojournalism.
And you were also in a research project, no?
We were I was in a research with Noor as well, which was a platform to transform photos into videos called Photo in Motion. And then there's also MESAC, right? MESAC is about cultural measuring the impact, the social impact of culture, which is another a great example of cooperation in the culture space.
Alan, from your side?
Yeah, so we are a private company, a startup at the moment, with 7 employees and investors from France, Germany, and Norway, producers and sales agents. And then we are also supported by Creative Europe Media, and we are launching in the fall together with, we were in Cannes and we showed our new product, and we signed 40 rights holders, sales agents, producers, and their catalog of films. And when we launch in the fall, we will be anyone who wants to join. And our long-term ambition is to make this central database of films, transactions, and rights a public good, where we can build applications on top to empower the film industry with technology and make it independent again.
Thank you. Corinne, same question.
I have two we's, actually. The first we is European Music Exporters Exchange. So we are 29 export initiatives, music initiatives. We are representing 25 countries in Europe. So that's one we, which is really collaboration, cooperation on exporting music. And the other we today would be the One Voice for European Music. So we had 30 different European music associations representing authors, composers, orchestras, labels, and a large scale part of the European music ecosystem, I would say.
Thank you. 14 minutes. I don't know if there is a question in the room. You can ask it in... Vous pouvez les poser en français ou en...
You can ask your questions in English or in French, as you like it. I am a research director on the digital ecosystem. A year ago, during the forum, a presentation was made regarding something initiated with the French government and author society in order to collect rights at the international level. That is in fact a way to collect the money generated by the large platforms via this administration in the individual countries. So, and then the redistribution. The idea is to re-inject that tax to the support system. So then, no news about this quite virtuous initiative. So I just wanted to have news about what actually happened with that initiative, bearing in mind that that was considered to be a priority of the French presidency. Well, I might not be able to answer on all of these aspects, but as far as music is concerned, I can say that the funding of the National Music Center is based on a tax on the tickets. And the funds, well, of course, part of the funds come from the state. And the idea of this tax on the streaming platform is something which is really topical. It's still being discussed. It takes a lot of time. I don't know what the end result is going to be. But as far as the music is concerned, that is what I can tell you. It has not been forgotten. And it is a source of funds. There are people who are in favor, others not, but it's still ongoing. Not yet operational. Well, to react on that, what we are also trying to do with regard to how to grapple with cooperation, maybe in certain cases we didn't tackle the question the right way at a European level, whether it be at a policy level or institutional level, or even in terms of the stakeholders to be involved. So we need to be clear about what is being built up. It's a public space, full-fledged public place, where you have to negotiate among 20 or even more states. And then you have the parliament, you have the professionals, you also need to experiment, to build up over time, and then to recognize that we might not have been attentive enough. Well, I think that this type of response can be pan-European. The way member states apply VAT or other types of taxes, well, we might as well think about harmonization, but it will take a lot of time. At least I know that many countries well, do envy us for having such a tax. I did discuss with some of our European colleagues, and it sounds quite good. I don't know whether this is spreading in other European countries, but, well, it's likely to take some time to become a reality. Any other question? Well, I think it's a comment rather than a question. I am supporting cultural structures or bodies in their international development. What you said about the input of cooperation, because I fully agree, because we are certainly stronger working together. And I'm convinced that cooperation is key. And also can see project owners facing obstacles when it comes to developing cooperation at the European level. That might be to the way of working, the problem of properly defining who is expected to be doing what in the project, and not least a language barrier that can make cooperation more difficult at the European level. So cooperation might be virtuous for a given sector, broadly speaking, but at the macro level, it is important to think about what should be put in place at the beginning of a process among the partners, so to make the cooperation successful. There's sort of a practical guide to cooperation, to successful cooperation, I mean. And so in French, well, I do like your remark. Well, we have been a sort of a leader in We Are Europe project, and the first 3 years have been extremely difficult. Once again, we are talking about a competitive sector. It is complicated to share your way of proceeding, to talk about your lineup, tell others that you intend to work with this or that artist, and what is the cost or how much you pay to the artist, to reveal all of that. So, but at the beginning, we started based only on programming, partner after partner. So the idea is that, in fact, partners being in a given territory, we cooperate with them. So we did that for the different festivals to start with. And then we get to know each other. We developed links. We discovered that we could do things without overlapping. And well, competition remains a reality, of course, at a national level, because we are sitting next to each other. But if you are working with somebody based in Barcelona, well, even though they are larger than us, well, competition is no longer really a hindrance. So, and at the second stage, as I said, we were able to think about co-production, video co-production, based on what we do on the scene. So those are things that are built up over time. What is interesting about cooperation, even though it is difficult to start, is what it brings about in terms of sharing stakes and being able to solve problems together. But once again, this is something that is done over time. Oh, you're right. You're right. It's highly complicated. You first of all need to have a lead, and without a lead, it's not going to work. Then there is a balance that will come about depending on the project. But this is worth it. Our motto during the different conferences is that, in fact, alone you can move fast, but working together you can go far. Well, again, I agree that it is complicated. Well, people who actually commit themselves, engage in such a process, in fact, rarely backtrack. When you experiment something which sounds so far away, difficult to reach, and yet, in the end, you say, well, why is it that I didn't think about working together earlier? Well, even though cooperation is not easy when competition prevails, but how is it that it wouldn't be possible for us to cooperate at a European scale? We are all in an environment where you cannot cope with the problems alone. You know, what we actually experience is that things are opening up. It's a matter of, well, actually, a sort of enrichment. And we know that collectively, we can face these problems. You are not working alone, and there is no need for you to reinvent the wheel each time. It is important to know who has already been working on this and who act in complement to what we're doing. Well, you can also develop cooperation among, let's say, just 3 organizations. So, in fact, there are areas where you might not have the competences required, and you require. So you grow gradually. And then, of course, so yeah, I mean, as opposed to just starting from, immediately with a large number of partners. Well, we have been discussing about synergy, but not standing alone, not being just alone is important. You might say that, well, I'm going to start with just the 2 of us or 3 of us, then grow. And we tend to be too much focused on ourselves. Jeff?
From the experience of the past 3 years with the pandemic, changed the way we all work together, and we were suddenly found that our quarterly in-person meetings were replaced or could be replaced by the video calls, maybe shorter, more frequent, to keep the rhythm going, because there's the risk where everyone's working on multiple projects. You've got your own project, and it's not on the top of your list until you get together every quarter in person, and then you realize, wow, we've really got something here, and you dive into it for 2 or 3 days, and then everyone goes back. So I think it's an opportunity. Obviously, all the things that everyone's saying, in all kinds of work situations and otherwise, about still the benefits of meeting in person, but the opportunities of using technology. That it should be a moment that in the space of these cooperative projects in Europe, that the sort of mechanism of how to work together is reimagined and challenged and can evolve. because you got to sort of keep the momentum going for a sustained time.
Non, mais moi, en fait, c'est deux exemples que je voulais donner qui sont simples.
I just wanted to refer to two examples illustrating how cooperation feeds cooperation. We had a problem which was known as it started as a small cooperation project. Starting with three partners, then 6 partners, and then it started overlapping with other projects like key change, with exchanges between, in fact, the projects which are funded. So we found out that what has been done by others can be shared by the newcomers. And one more example, the Footprint project, which brought together 6 partners trying to measure carbon footprint and thresholds, and the economic impact is also assessed. So what is in fact the economic impact of changing things over in order to reduce carbon footprint? So what is true for jazz, I imagine that's also true for, the performing arts, broadly speaking. So we shouldn't stop at the first difficulties of setting up this type of projects. Well, I can see that the time has elapsed, so thank you very much for your contribution.